to have an uninterrupted electricity and water supply from solar energy in the Gambia and beyond? Worry no more, because Solar Enterprise will provide you with the solutions at reasonable cost. We have experienced personnel who can install and advise you about your electricity and water supply with a warranty period. We have good quality solar products from North America and Europe. We provide services and sell products to individuals, organizations, institutions, private offices, communities, and government. These products are solar panels, batteries, charge controllers, inverters, water pump, water heaters, freezers, submersible pumps, and general solar accessories. Visit our stores at 48 Kairaba Avenue and Brusubi Highway, or you can call us on 7657 479 980 8483 340 9400 or 635-9906.
Jawo Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jawo, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jawo Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Brusubi opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited, or email us at info@jawomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051, or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jawo Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jawo Money Transfer.
Agada. Albaka.
Mbaka important.
Yo, nga transfer la sto.
Ya transfer la sto.
Ha, code nyingi.
Okay. What's Nsila ID soto.
Sorry. Agada.
Bijan bro.
Albaka.
Mbaka.
Bara alla service o tariya. Mbare ki janna nun kunu bara tariya.
Jannom yona forest de bureau. Gambia tonkon na no mbari ya bere. Birim koyna fo kato.
Bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolong blabe.
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam.
Ha?
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol. Nko kodo kiya bere. Kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi topoto nin kodi maraw. Jannom number 1 ti nyonta. Andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale. Wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale de dadi man domorol dil fana beteat. Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je.
Wo moyo diat ha.
Apelenta
baraka ni na lafta nyelen kendol e bina.
Yalo bukani na ko la baraka ba.
Yalo ndel chosano lo.
Abaraka.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Hello and welcome to the brunch on Kerfatu Live. I am Lamin Cham and welcome again to our weekly look at matters that dominates the news over the last 7 days. Yes, of course, that include the Constitution of the Gambia that's been debated between the 2020 and the 2024 draft. Which one is the people's document? We will revisit that with a brand new set of panelists in the studio as opposed to last week and the week before. We will also take a look at the relations between Senegal and the Gambia and through the lens of the Senegalo-Gambia Permanent Secretariat, the body that was set up long time ago to work behind the scenes when it comes to diplomatic, political, cultural and security arrangements in terms of relations between the two countries. The Bureau has a long history and we will revisit their work as contemporary matters are concerned. Then we will of course join maybe headlong into the raging debate going on as to whether Gambians should support the candidates of Dr. Mamadou Tangara, our foreign minister, who is vying to be Secretary General of the Commonwealth, a job that will become vacant, I think, next month or so, when Patricia Scotland leaves. Are you in support of the petition or against it? Well, I have a few thoughts here, both for and against, and I hope that our panelists here will have a word or two from their own perspective on the matter. So, gentlemen, and I will introduce them. My far right is independent investigative journalist Mustapha Darboe of the Republic. Veteran journalist Demba Jawo is here. He's refusing to retire. I don't know when will he retire. And we have, of course, Dr. Cherno Omar. He is Vice Chancellor of the International Online University, and also I see Deputy Executive Secretary still now? Oh, okay, I thought they put Director as everyone else there. So he's Deputy Executive Secretary of the Senegalo-Gambian Permanent Secretariat, whom I always see their vehicles numbered PSSG. So there's this French bias, as far as the name of the institution is concerned, not so?
No, Permanent Secretariat.
Permanent Secretariat?
Senegambia.
Senegambia. Oh, that's how it's called now. Oh, even that is French. Even that is French, Jawo.
There's nothing French in that.
Permanent Secretariat. No, let's
permanent.
Okay. So this is Permanent
Secretariat. Secretariat.
Of
Senegambia.
There's no of.
No, Permanent Secretariat Senegalo-Gambia.
Yes.
So he's in the middle. It sounds French to me still now. Anyway, Doctor, welcome to the brunch.
Thank you.
Okay, like I said, I promised that we will begin by, sitting and listening to you. Tell us, broadly outline the work of the Senegalo-Gambian Permanent Secretary. Maybe me and Jawo, what we remembered was the office was so much in the news in the wake of the 1981 coup attempt. When there was one Seydou Nourou, is it Seydou Nourou? He featured prominently during the crisis of the 81. I was a very small boy, but I was au fait with matters. Mustapha too must have dug in history and must have learned a lot about the Senegalo-Gambian Permanent Secretariat. So, what is the work of the Secretariat, Doctor?
Okay, probably to give justice to this quick introduction, it will be ideal to bring a little bit of history to it.
Indeed.
So that we can better understand
Which I attempted to do,
function.
but very little did I know.
Very good attempt. I think if we look at it first from a geographical perspective, the way the Gambia and Senegal geographically outlays, or mapped out, you will find that is, as many would call it, one people, two countries. One people living in two countries. Yes. Yeah. And some argued differently though, but why one would say is one people, two countries is practically whatever ethnic group you find in Senegal is what you will find in the Gambia. Whatever religion you find in Senegal is what you find in the Gambia. We share our cultural values, we share a lot of things. So closely, more closely than any other two countries probably in Africa. That is the assumption. They might be
well, you're right. Maybe what I think would have been less settled on South Africa, but well, I think I read that they have different kingdoms who doesn't see you eye to eye. The Zulus and the Kosas, I don't know how they call it.
So you will find that in reality, the colonial masters were just grappling with land and space, and in doing that, they decided to trace boundaries and separated two families, one family rather, into two countries. Now, take for example, when you go to Panchang, there are just some few examples of countries. When you go to Panchang,
Panchang is in Yemen, is it?
Panchang is in Salom.
Salom.
After
Salom, yeah.
You get to Jawo and then Panchang. When you get to Panchang today, you find that Panchang has a village divided into two countries.
Oh, really?
So you find Panchang Angale and Panchang Francais.
And Dimbaya as well.
Yeah, Dimbaya, exactly. Dimbaya is probably much more closer than even Panchang.
Okay.
But Dimbaya has the alcalde of one of the villages, maybe the Senegalese part, is the brother of the imam of the other side. Oh,
really?
Yeah, they're same family. So they never knew the existence of boundaries when they were growing up. I mean, this is what you see. Boundaries are at political level. Some of the effects maybe might have been there and all that, but they were, some of them were even uprooted. Finally, nobody would know how things turn out. But anyway, what I'm trying to drive at is, when you look at the socio-cultural context, we would probably say we have a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Now, at the political level, I think everything started at the time in the early 1960s, or probably late 1950s.
Yeah.
When we had Uncle Pierre Ndiaye, chief minister at the time. And then you have Mamadou Dia in Senegal, who attempted to try to reach out to each other because they felt that there's a way we could all work together. Considering Gambia is practically cutting Senegal in almost half.
Yeah.
Separating the northern part and the southern part. The southern part being Casamance and the northern part being what we call north of Senegal.
Yeah.
So they felt there's a good relationship would allow even the Senegalese to take advantage of the proximity between the two areas to be crossing over without difficulties, so that there would be much hassle, or they see the two states as different. So a cooperation was almost reached at before then Chief Pierre Ndiaye lost to the elections. And then allowed the PPP came in. When Jawara came in.
Let me ask the question. There was the theory has it that there was a political campaign slogan, Jawara and others, saying that Pierre Ndiaye wanted to sell Gambia to Senegal. Couldn't they be referring to this rapprochement between Ndiaye and Ja?
Well, you see, the problem is how you perceive things at the time.
Okay.
Pierre Ndiaye was probably making negotiations to allow Gambia to benefit a lot from Senegal, and naturally others would perceive that as Senegal taking over Gambia. Exactly. Naturally.
Yes.
But Pierre Ndiaye was seeing it from probably a different light. Because when Jawara came, and this is making reference more to what he wrote, he was more worried about whether the sovereignty of the nation would not be compromised if they go into certain areas of negotiation. So naturally what they did was they decided to renegotiate things. And this is when Senghor came into play. So in 1967, they decided to sign some few documents. And then, they signed a defense agreement, for example, an economic agreement. But things didn't work out the way they wanted. It never really worked out the way they wanted.
Yeah.
Because every time they wanted to implement certain things, there are obstructions here, some of it most political.
Yeah.
Until 1981. So that means they had this document signed. The agreements are there in paper, but they have never been fully implemented. But in 1981, when Abdou Diouf was the president and then Kukoy came and took over, then Jawara decided to invoke that agreement. The defense agreement in particular.
The Kaur Declaration.
Yes, the Kaur Declaration. And this is what brought in the Senegalese to help Gambia get back its country in 81, it came very bloodily for Senegal.
But that had met your office in existence.
Yes, actually, yes. Now, coming back to the story of the Secretariat, it was established around 1967. In the 1970s.
Okay.
And then it was called then the Senegalo-Gambian Committee. And then it started like that. And then you had the Gambian, I think, or Senegalese, some of them, heading the place. So it was an office to help coordinate issues related to the two countries.
I see.
That's how it started.
I see.
But then when it wasn't very effective, it got dormant. Practically it was there in existence, but not as active until 1981. So when they invoked defense agreement, Abdou Diouf decided now to say, okay, you know what, I don't see the essence of having agreements that cannot be implemented. So they sat down again and decided then they will now decide to discuss and then come up with another agreement. And this is where the Confederation came about in 1982. So when the Confederation kicked off, in late 1981, early 1982, and then that's when we started the Confederation, which we all saw how it ended up in 1989. We will not go into the details. But in 1989, due to many challenges in their understanding at political level in particular, the Senegalese decided that the best option now was just to end it. Even though the ending was also a kind of a strange one, because they just had to call away the forces that were guarding the president. Now, from 1989, things were really at a standstill. There was no particular office that represented the two countries. So negotiations were more at the bilateral diplomatic through Ministry of Foreign Service. So in 2006, Jammeh thought it wise to probably, reinitiate this idea.
I see. In 2006?
In 2006. But apparently, what really was the urgency at the time came from Senegal. Yes, I think for some reason.
Because I'm surprised Demba would be released.
Yes. The urgency came from Senegal. And this was the time when Ablaye Wade was already in place. So Ablaye became very in close proximity with Jammeh, and then they worked it out. And then finally, in 2010, they started signing their first agreement to establish the Secretariat. They called it again the Senegalo-Gambian Permanent Secretariat. So because of that, then they decided in 2011 to open it, and then Jammeh insisted he was going to have it hosted in the Gambia. And also the contributions would be 50-50, even though he understood the economic might of Senegal was bigger, but he wouldn't want us to repeat history where Senegal would claim that they are contributing more, they have more rights to this or that. So then there was this 50.
Always full of pride.
Yes.
That was
and this Secretariat this time had three major functions. The first was to be the organ of liaison, consultation and dialogue that would enable the two countries to mutually inform on common policies that they are implementing, or most importantly, harmonize some of the policies, either be national, international, or regional. Some of these policies probably will come from AU or ECOWAS or Nepal at the time, so they would have to harmonize them to ensure Gambia and Senegal, even though they have difference in linguistics like English and French, they have difference in their administrative structures, but they try to harmonize these policies to ensure that continuous collaboration and eventually the integration that they were yearning to have. And then the second most important component was to establish what we call a consultative commission, a joint one between Gambia and Senegal, that would allow the Prime Minister of Senegal and the Vice President of the Gambia to preside over every 6 months a meeting either to be held in Gambia or in Senegal to discuss on the updates on the policies, updates on the agreements, give updates on how far we have gone, etc., etc. And then the third most important one now is to allow the Secretariat to also bring in what we call propositions, initiate what we call interstate activities in the areas of economic, social, or cultural, that would reinforce that development of the two countries and accelerate that process that we are yearning to be, which is the regional integration, as recommended by EU, ECOWAS, and Nepal. So this has been their three major functions. So, but then for the structure to be in place, the Gambia decided that because they are hosting, naturally they would allow Senegal to be given the privilege of being the executive secretary.
But wasn't
it Gambia like would be deputy?
Wasn't it ever like that? Secretary from Senegal-Gambia,
no.
vice versa.
I think so. Yes, but in the past, because of probably the contribution component, so there was a quota. And because of that quota, Senegal has always been ahead. Yeah, but remember, it wasn't hosted in the Gambia at the time. I mean, during the Confederation, it was practically in Senegal. So, and if you look at what happened from what I have, the little tidbits I've been reading, apparently even when it comes to the ministerial, what we call the confederal ministry positions, Gambia hardly got more than two.
Gambia was playing second fiddle.
Well, exactly. But in this one, what has happened now is that there are executive secretary and deputy executive secretary, the Gambian and the Senegalese. Each of them are appointed by the president himself. It's not, they are not appointed by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Yes, they're appointed directly by the president.
The director and the executive director.
The executive secretary and deputy executive. So
which president?
The president of the country.
The Gambia.
They come from.
No,
Senegal appointed.
Like the Senegalese the executive secretary is appointed by the president of Senegal, and then the Gambia, the president of Senegal, Gambia will appoint the executive secretary. But they all hold what we call that equal rank. It's just that the structure allows the executive secretary to be given a privilege of managing and heading in consultation with the deputy executive secretary.
But they're counterparts.
Yes, counterparts. And then you have 4 directorates. You have 2 directorates responsible for appointed by Gambia, and 2 directors appointed by Senegal. So there's an equal standing there, when it comes to that. And then the rest are local staff that are appointed.
Of course, they have to come from the Gambia.
They have to come from the Gambia. But practically, most of the areas have been covered under these directorates. You have defense, you have economics, you have trade, you have culture, you have information, you have all of them have been covered under the directorate. So practically any area of cooperation would have been covered within this directorates. So this is how these things.
What have been the major contemporary issues that have beset, or let's say that your bureau had worked on? For example,
the most critical issues really falls on border issues.
Yes, that's right.
Border issues are the most critical. To just give you some examples, for example, some of the border contentions we practically have here, one of them is the Dasilami Tuba Tranquil, which is very close by, around Brikama End. So when you get to Dasilami, if you look at the history, the border pegs unfortunately have disappeared. And if you look at the activity of the rebels from the other side, and then the contingents of soldiers, sweeping, doing patrolling and all that, naturally allowed a lot of activity of security going on.
There are accusations that the Senegalese have been moving the posts inside.
Well, that is an accusation, but they cannot be justified because the pegs have disappeared. Anyway, so what happened really is that some of the community that were in Casamance, some of them decided to relocate within the zone, Gambian zone. And they decided to settle. And for them who settled, they came, for example, in the case of Dasilami, they came closer to Dasilami. There was more peace there, and there was more tranquility, and they decided to settle there. And then with generation, and this is not just today or yesterday, it's generation. And after these generations, what naturally happened was that they lived with the community of Dasilami. Until now, when the issue of security getting closer, brought the issue of the border, and now when there are issues that were happening, so they decided the security will come and say they are going to Tuba Tranquil to their relative, meaning the Senegalese counterpart.
Exactly.
But for Dasilami, Tuba Tranquil is practically inside Gambia because it was a settlement that was created by people who came to settle closer. So it became a contention. And then decided finally that, because we have this National Border Commission in the Gambia and one in the Senegal, but the 2 of them, when they meet, the Secretariat becomes the chair. So when issues of this nature happens, we go to the border, and eventually we recommended that there be a buffer zone where, because we also have a military very close to Dasilami there, that is also overseeing.
So you mean the buffer zone means the Senegalese troops cannot go to Tuba?
Yes, there's a buffer zone in which we have said even if they are going to come, it should be something that has already been cleared security-wise.
Yes.
Yeah, because you see, at the end of the day, the security also got an agreement where they do joint patrols and things like that. So they can always patrol that at that area. In the event, let's say, for example, the Senegalese suspect that they have rebels who have probably crossed over and they are in Tuba Tranquil, they might want to come over. So they might be allowed up to about, naturally the agreement is to be allowed up to 10 kilometers inside. But you know what 10 kilometers means for Gambia? Gambia is practically getting right in. So, but then it is all, we have created a system in which there is what we call communication posts in both countries, where immediate, instant, urgent communications can be conveyed, so that the patrols will immediately get up and then create a joint patrol and then come over the zone, so that there is no conflict where a soldier or a military truck or this thing is seen to be crossing over and then creating some kind of misunderstanding.
That matter is solved now.
Well, that matter is solved. You know, the military, in fact, very recently, just last month, they had a very big meeting here in the Gambia, the two military joint military forces. And then we also have the Trans-Gambia Road, you know, with Senoba and Senoba Misera and also Ker Aib and Farafenye. Most of the issues are more at security level, because what happens is that the two communities feel that the security are too close to their community, to their borders, or to their space. And there was this ECOWAS intention to have what we call joint border posts that are close to each other to avoid that difficulty of people moving from one country to another. So instead of having to travel from one border post to kilometers to another border post, the Gambia decided that they can have very close border posts.
Like Karang.
Like Karang. Exactly.
A very good example.
Exactly. Karang Amdalai. So instead of having to drive from one to the other, you just have to move to one, then walk onto the other, and the transports will be clear, and then you climb and then you go. And in fact, the idea is, even lessen all that burden, probably make it much more easy for people to move around. But you see, at the moment, we are yet to implement all that because it's a process.
I see.
And then we also have, you mentioned Daranka, right? What is the village that has that? Dimbaya, yes, Dimbaya. It's a good example of a community that is living right on top of the border, that has complete, peace and harmony. And it's been taken as a sample to see how best, other communities can emulate that. Because we feel that communities on Senegal and Gambia can live together. So one of the tasks of the Secretariat is to also sensitize these communities, go and find out some of what they want to do. For example, in Dimbaya, there has been in the past projects in which they have been supported to do, for example, gardening, women gardening, a host of other activities that would allow the community to be much stronger together. So they don't sense the difference between being in Gambia or in Senegal, but they see themselves more as a people of Africa, as a people that are living within a space that they share together.
I see. Okay, so how do you solve political problems, political differences? For example, sometimes tensions can come between ministers or governments. How do you go about it? If it ever happens, how do you go about it?
Okay, the task of the Secretariat has a limit. If it gets to a certain level, probably what can be considered a kind of a conflict between the two states. We also have we already have mediation channels for that to happen. Mostly, ECOWAS would be taking over from those kinds of things. Because what we do mostly is to just oversee agreements, to see where the eventuality of the agreement not being honored by a country or the other. To just give you an example, recently when at KRI we had about 300 and something trucks that were there having goods. They refused to allow the tracking. No, this is not the cement. It's different. These are just tracking transit goods. The tracking system, they refused to allow it to be, to pay. What happened was that we were forced to go to Mansakonko and call the ministries of commerce and trade and transport, and then we had a discussion and looked at some of the critical issues that might be hindering that smooth movement of these goods. They're on transit, both for Gambian goods going to Mali, Guinea-Conakry or Guinea-Bissau, or for Senegalese goods crossing over the Gambia to the other side. So in that discussion, we were able to bring out a lot of other smaller challenges that might always create problems. And then the ministers took how they call it, a kind of a decision, which is considered to be a state decision at that time, to agree that a lot of all these small problems will have to be lifted, such as some of the payments that are made in Senegal to make a declaration certificate before the customs will allow you to pass, or for the case of the Senegalese, when they are being stopped in certain police points, checkpoints, and maybe asked to pay a certain amount of money. So all of this, we decided we'll have to uplift them, lift them up. They are not even legal. So
you made recommendations to both governments.
Yes, so both governments, recommendations were made to both governments, and they all agreed and approved. So a declaration was written down, a kind of a joint communique, and they all agreed to sign it. So for us, we are monitoring now the implementation. Just yesterday, I had to go to Jibor and Seleti to oversee, to observe some trucks that are there that are protesting. So we are looking at what are the reasons for their protest, because they said they have been told not to pay any additional money other than the escort. So the only thing they can pay is the escort. But when it comes to because they have what we call a transit declaration to make, and that transit declaration is costing them a lot of money.
I see.
Which at the agreement was lifted off.
Lifted.
Yes, but then when we looked at it, we realized that
the Gambian side is still.
But I thought with the tracking, there is no need for an escort.
In Senegal, for Gambians, we do the tracking. Senegalese don't do the tracking.
I see.
They are yet to implement it, but they are working on it.
Okay.
So what they do in place of tracking is to allow an escort, who will now allow you accompany the convoy of trucks, and then get all the papers of those trucks, get them to Ziganshore, get them stamped, get them up to the exit point, and allow them to go, get everything stamped, and then come back. And because the guy is going to follow them, he will need to eat, and he will need to transport back. So they give him an amount of money, which is calculated to suffice to cover his costs.
But when the stamping comes, that will replace that?
That will replace it, and then the cost would even be much lower. Now the issue at hand now is, do they have to declare when entering the Senegalese territory, if they have already got a declaration? So this is now what we are trying to sort out, because there are two forms of things that are happening. In the Gambia, there are goods that are coming directly to the port and getting to outside the country on transit. So normally when they get to the port, all the papers are prepared. So the declaration is done by customs and everybody. So there's no issue there. They can come, they don't need to pay for declaration, they can go. However, there are some goods that are bought right inside the Gambia that have already paid their own tax in Gambia.
In the Gambia.
So now they are crossing over, but the declaration needs to be also prepared from a different perspective. Now this is where the problem lies, because sometimes it seems that the declaration, if it is truly declared by some truckers, they have an issue. So we are trying to work on all those here.
Oh, okay. Well, enough for now. Mustapha, you must have been listening intently to deliberations by the doctor from the bureau. Let me ask you, in fact, is this office work so visible in your everyday life to notice what he has been talking about their work in the background?
I've been involved in one of their work, one incident. In 2015, there was an incident in Tranquil.
Tranquil? Where we are sitting here?
No, Tranquil.
Okay.
The place is talking about. There was an incident, the same border incident. Also there is an Alcalo in Tranquil who insists that he is in Senegal. Gambia believes he's in Gambia. So there are a lot of incidents. There are a lot of factors there. And when we went there, Macky Sall sent in General Francois Ndiaye. The guy who led Operation Democracy, Restore Democracy, the general.
Francois, he was there.
He was National Security Advisor to Macky Sall at the time. So he was the one who came to the Gambia. So the deployment to lead the ECOWAS forces, I think, must have come in the background of his understanding of the terrain.
Exactly.
So he came and he was there, and at this time the local government minister was Sonko, the guy who was later made the director of prisons, something like that.
Could that
director
be
of prisons?
You mean the minister?
It's not Sonko. It's not Sonko. It's.
Could it be?
He was later the director of prisons. Later on, I don't know.
He was minister.
Yes, he was minister, but he was later deployed to the prisons under the new administration.
Okay. Oh, but
he was minister under Jammeh.
Okay, so he was made director.
Lamin Sane.
Lamin Sane? No, Lamin
Sane.
Maybe Lamin Sane.
Lamin Sane. He was covering West Coast as governor.
Yes.
I think he's the one, because he's the one who went to prison as administrator.
No, but he was never a minister.
No, he was never.
No, he was a permanent secretary.
He was permanent secretary.
Yes, he was permanent secretary.
So he was there with us. I mean, we went there, and Abba Sanyang was at the Secretariat at that time.
Yes.
And I mean, there was this incident, and it was tough. And even recently, not very long time ago, under the new administration, there was also that was potentially bad, because the military was involved. Senegal usually appoints a new leader in Casamance, so there is a military command that is in charge of Casamance. So each time a new appointed, they go on a tour. So they came into what Gambian military understood to be Gambian territory,
and they were armed. And Gambian military said, "You are not coming."
We remember.
So there was a standoff.
That was before I was appointed.
Yes, there was a standoff, and I have worked on illegal timber trade, and one of the things I came to understand in Gambia and Senegal, and not just Gambia and Senegal. When people say Gambia and Senegal are the same countries, I don't necessarily think so. I think this whole region is the same people. I mean, from Mali to Guinea-Conakry, it's the same.
Yeah, that's true.
It's the same.
Senegambia is actually...
Yeah, so Senegambia is not unique to
No, the Senegambia, in fact, is bigger. If you look at Baboucar Barry's study of Senegambia, he said Mali, Guinea-Conakry, Guinea-Bissau, the whole space is Senegambia, up to part of
is the same people, all to part of Mauritania. I mean, you go to Mauritania, you still have Wolof, you have Sarahule, you have Mandinkas, you have Fulas. You go to Bamako, it's the same thing. You go to, so it's the same terrain. But one thing that's interesting about the Gambia-Senegal relationship, and I think that this hasn't been factored in a number of cases, probably maybe I didn't understand the policy issues there, and I came to realize this when I was working on the timber investigation, is that the border is in the mind of the elites. The educated people are the one who know the border. Now, the person who is settling at that place only knows his house and his farm.
Yes.
And in his head, he knows his house, and he knows his farm, and he knows his brother's house. So border, he doesn't know that. The people who created the border are the people who have to protect the border. That's not his business. I mean, I went to Balen, where, there was an ambush that the rebels have laid for Senegalese sources when they were pursuing a timber truck. The clash started there in 2021. And 2022. So at the height of that tension, I went there, and I was speaking to somebody from Balen who pointed at a place inside Casamance to say that's their farm. So this guy is in Balen in Gambia, but his farm is in Senegal. And that's the situation all over the place. And and it's everywhere, all of the borderline, including whether it's in the other side or in the other side, south and the north bank. And so I was speaking to one guy, and what also struck me hard was the complications of the social relationships. And so I came to even understand the term Senegalese rebels. Because you do know that there are Gambians there are people who are settled in the Gambia, who are in the bush, and they are considered rebels, but they are not Senegalese, they are Gambians. You look into timber trade, you know this. The term Senegalese rebels is something that it needs to be looked into, because these people settle around the border end, and they considered the forest their resources. And it's a very complex social setting, and the socio-economic complexities are huge, and that is why I think all border issues require a very good socio-political studies, so that there are adequate interventions. So if you go to, for example, and you will see that there is a strong rejection of a strong opposition to Senegalese presence in Fonyi. This has its own social reasons, because there are, even when I was investigating the timber trade, you realize the reason why Senegalese were confiscating motorbikes, this was in the news, was because there were a lot of people who were on motorbikes, who were collecting intelligence for timber smugglers. So timber smugglers will load their trucks, they will lead the way. The people on motorbikes with their phone will lead the way. So there are footpaths. So wherever there are checkpoints, they will be informing them. So they clear the way for them. And the Senegalese, they have a lot of intelligence. Senegalese have also infiltrated that area. So they have a lot of intelligence being collected in the communities. And they know. So when they come and confiscate motorbikes, everybody complains people don't know, but the Senegalese knew they were they confiscate those based on intelligence. So it's a huge socioeconomic issue that is happening there that needs a thorough study to understand and to fix, so that you can fix it more closely with compassion than with, because governance also has to do with compassion, exactly. And so Gambia and Senegal, in all the borderlines, have a huge complex relationships that needs to be protected with caution. And
you mentioned Fonyi. It's always been the most volatile case, Doctor. Before I go to Jawo, how do you, in your office, how do you conceive that idea? Because, like he said, that is where trouble always comes. The people of Fonyi don't believe that the Senegalese, especially the Senegalese intervention force in the economic, are up to any good. They believe that they have been persecuted. Every time their representatives come to parliament, they complain about that. How do you deal with those complaints in your office?
Yes, you will have to understand, and I agree with Mustapha, there is a complexity of situations there, and basically one of the major problems is economics. Because remember, those who are mostly at the borderlines there, they also look for ways of surviving. Now, let's say, for example, somebody is surviving on cutting timber and selling it. Now, how do you ensure the person stops? There must be another form of livelihood.
Yes.
So this is where now we are looking at. We are not saying, okay, we will condemn only. As he has rightly said, the approach is give the person an alternative form of livelihood that the person can decide on. We also have to be conscious that there is also, how they call it, Indian hemp also being cultivated there by many people. And cannabis. So there, some of them are living on this. It's bringing a lot of money for them.
One day, the ambassador of the High Commissioner of India will pick up trouble. How you call it Indian hemp?
Okay. So those people are also in their economic survival. So if you want to stop them, cultivating, you don't just take them, prosecute them. You just have to make sure the community stops it by giving alternative ways of an economic kind of source of livelihood. So it's a complex one and needs some critical study so that it can be resolved. Now, apart from that, as he has already said, also there's an issue of borderlines. People don't see the pegs, so they cannot distinguish where they can stop. There are this issue of land, for example, people living on one side and then doing farming on another side. If you go to them and tell them, they tell you, my great-grandfather was farming on that land.
Yes.
But all of a sudden today it is in Senegal. So that's their perception of things. So how do we resolve that? We don't resolve that by just saying, okay, we are going to condemn you from this. No, we are saying, okay, once the demarcations are clear, once we do the delimitations and we know really your land is in Senegal, there is no doubt. We will make arrangement with the government authorities to also give you, lease you that land, provide you an opportunity to drop that land for you to continue cultivating.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. If the community of Senegal also, some of them have land probably that goes around the Gambia. Yeah. So we're looking at ways of ensuring the community continues to live within that space without having to see that persecution coming because of that political or legislative issues.
How about currency issues? Sometimes government authorities or the other side will say, no, transaction will have to be done in CFA or in dollars. How do you go about that?
That's interesting. Now let me tell you, in truth, CFA is not the currency of Senegal. No, it's a currency. No, let me just explain.
Yeah.
It's a currency of a much wider space.
But in the
hold on. I'm answering to your question. I know the content, okay. Let me just answer to this.
Right.
So what happens is that many Gambians prefer getting the CFA. That's the irony. Because the CFA is money that keeps evaluating, meaning that it has some devaluation appreciation that gives them benefits. But also they know when they want to buy a lot of things, they can buy with CFA. Most of the trade that is going on is going with Gambia and Senegal. We might not be conscious of it. There are a lot of goods that have been allowed without taxes to come from Senegal to the Gambia. Something like food, some of the herbs and fruits and vegetables and things like that. Some of them are not taxed, so they come from Senegal. There are a lot of people who are doing the commerce around that border. They prefer to do legal tender with the CFA because it's much easier for them to accept it on the other side and get it done. But for Dalasi, unfortunately, if the Senegalese carries Dalasi inside Senegal, finds it difficult to use it.
Yeah.
So because the legal tender for Senegal is always safer. Now the Gambia will come on and say, no, but why are we then doing integration and things like why is our money not being used? But you see, look, you have to look at money currency. Why are we using dollar in our country here?
Yeah.
We might not probably be buying things. But I mean, if somebody wants to pay you in dollar, you're happier to receive the dollar. Why? Because you can change the dollar anywhere, and you will not lose the value of your money. Yeah. But then if it comes to your dollar, you keep losing
the value of the money depends on the economy that backs it.
Exactly. Yes. So if the economy of CFA is backed by more than 10 countries, so naturally what it means is that money continues to get stronger, and wherever you have it, you can be sure that you can always get more benefits out of it by buying or by even changing it. But the dollars, you cannot have that. So naturally, there is always that contention around the border or anywhere. Even the Gambia, when we are doing business with Senegal, we prefer having the CFA. Why? Because when we get the CFA,
and an insult to our sovereignty.
No.
When Senegalese come
that's an economist will not say that. An economist will not say that. Because an economist will always come to tell you that you look at the win-win situation. You know, if the Gambia continues to get the CFA, like they will get the dollar, like they will get the euro, they know that the CFA has a value that will allow us to continue to import. Because remember, we are importing. We are not exporting. If we were selling, we could probably at some point start getting so much to determine then we know how to even our own currency. But we continue to import. Importers will have no choice but to use the money of, to buy the currency of the seller. You know, so that's unfortunately the case. Maybe my greater expert here will help us out.
Jawo, how do you see the whole Senegal? You live in Senegal for 10 years.
Right. I think it's a very complex issue. I mean, particularly when it comes to the border issue. And I agree with Mustapha. For the common person, I mean, the border line doesn't matter much. For them, it is their, socio-economic existence that matters. And that's the problem with the Fonyi area. The Fonyi people depend mostly, on the forest for a lot of things, particularly economically. And they see that, the Senegalese are trying to restrict them to use the forest products. And that's the contention between Fonyi and the Senegalese government. Because for them, Gambia kind of run out of forest. And they now depend, because the other part of the forest is now in the Casamas. And definitely the people of Fonyi depend a lot on forest products for their, social existence and whatever. So that's an area of contention. And again, I think the authorities between the Gambia and the Senegal, particularly the Gambia area, because demarcating the border, I think is more in the interest of the Gambia than even in Senegal. Like as I said, some people have been alleging that the Senegalese have been pushing the pegs inside the Gambia so that they can reduce Gambian side and then increase their own side. There have been that accusation. Although I have not seen anybody who come up with any tangible evidence of that. But whatever the case, I think the authorities should now put permanent demarcation lines on the border so that people will know this is where the Gambia stops, whatever the case. And I think the Secretariat has a big role to play in that area. I think it shouldn't be left like that to say that, we are creating a buffer zone. Buffer zone is temporary. It's definite time that the two countries agree on a permanent border, so that people will know this. I'm sure you can put some permanent pegs there that, people just can't throw, or anything that will be able to identify the border. This is where the border is. And I think the Commission definitely has a big role. The Secretariat has a very big role to play in that, and try to see how best you can be able to bring the two, border commissions together and sit down and solve this issue once and for all. But I agree definitely for the common person the border doesn't matter much, because people have been living, in this part of the world for time immemorial, and they never had any border restrictions. They've been moving from one side. In fact, it is not only in the Fonyi area, but go to the place they call Kabada. Virtually, you don't.
It's all over, even the south, even the North Bank.
Exactly.
Even the North Bank. This
in Kabada, if you listen to that Senegalese MP, who actually comes from that, he's right. All the people of that area have Senegalese Gambian documents, because it's easier to access facilities in the Gambia because they are a bit remote from there. So it's easier. Most of their children come to school in Gambian schools, and they have made all efforts to acquire Gambian documents, and that's the situation because the border is so porous that you hardly know whether you are in Gambia or in Senegal, and the people are the same. The people of Kabada are the Torobe. They are the same people. They are everything with the ones
on the other side.
And that is the same thing in Fonyi.
Exactly.
That is the same thing everywhere.
Same thing in Fonyi because of the crisis. That's why, for you, the border is more popular.
Right.
But then it's the same with Kabada.
It's the same everywhere.
Yes. Sanjal, if you like.
It is the same everywhere.
It's the same area. Salum, exactly.
Everywhere, all along the border, it's the same thing. You hardly know where the border is. And the people don't care about whether this is where the peg is. For them, it's their social existence that matters, and they are doing it. And as I said, most Gambians have depended on the forest, forest products for their survival, for a lot of things. And
they don't want to believe that part of this forest now is in another country.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
One thing that Senegal has done, though, that Gambia hasn't been doing, is that Senegal tends to leverage on the geography, the connections, the links between Gambia and Senegal to build, to improve its trade more and make Gambia more dependent on it than Gambia has done to make Senegal more dependent on it.
And who do you blame?
So, for example, even where we have joint trade centers like Farafenni, for example, Farafenni has become a trade hub where Senegalese come to do. But now that place is almost like Senegal. If you go to Poste, you go to Lumo, that's Senegal. You go to Kerepate,
you are Senegalese.
you go to Kerepate.
You are Senegalese. You go to Kerepate.
Yes, you go to Kerepate. And now
I saw Kaulak Chalo being sold in Farafenni and Sanja. Chalo cut, bonga fish cut in Kaulak.
Yes.
Brought into,
we can't blame Senegal for that. The devaluation of the dalasi, it's simple economic factor that Gambia has to address within its economy. The currency does not give itself its value.
There has to be.
It has to be backed by some real economy.
In fact, the Central Bank Monetary Policy meeting came out with said that one of the reasons why the CFA is appreciating over there is because we don't have anything to.
Because the simple thing is that you
need more CFA to do your business.
Exactly.
So naturally, when you need the CFA, the CFA becomes.
It's economics. That's all. Yeah.
Simple law of demand and supply. You need the currency, and the currency's value goes up.
And then maybe to come back to the issue of the buffer zone, you are right. It is temporal. Actually, as I speak with you now, in July there was the Joint Border Commission. They met in Dakar because they meet, in the country at every time. They met first in the Gambia. Now they met in July in Dakar. They've already done research, archival research, and they have got Senegal and Gambia. Both of them got almost about 40-something documents that they have now. They are constituting a small committee to sit down now and look through all those documents and then come up with all where the border lines have really been traced. Because they have looked at archival research and then they have got all of that. Present, as I speak with you, by next week, the same Joint Border Commission, composing of Senegalese and Gambians, will be traveling from Tuesday going forward for about 10 days around all these border lines again. Looking at some of the critical areas that are happening around it. So yes, it's a continuous process. But one thing that gives me hope is that at least there is a serious effort going on, even if it is in the background. Until I came on board, people were saying the Senegalo-Gambia Secretariat was not very visible. But they have been doing a lot of work, and I think visibility is important. People need to understand too that there is an effort going on to see that both Senegal and Gambia work together, to see that whether it's border issues, whether it's crises that are happening within the two countries, whether it's economic or trade, that they have been resolved. Mustapha just mentioned that there's this advantage of trade from Senegal to the Gambia, goods of Senegal going to the Gambia. But there's work going on now as I speak with you, with the Ministry of Trade. They also have certain goods that they are negotiating with Senegal so that they could also go to Senegal and be sold there. Because you see, Senegal is what it's doing is protecting its environment.
Yes.
If it is producing, it says, if I'm producing certain goods, so I protect the environment. Like if a chicken is made, if you are raising chicken and selling it in Senegal, I wouldn't allow any importation of chicken. It doesn't matter which country it comes from, even if it is from Gambia. But then if an agreement comes from Gambia, we can make a common market and say, okay, Gambia produce, Senegal produce, we sell it in both markets. No problem. So that's a possibility. So all these things are coming up, and the agreements are almost at the tail end.
I think
but if it happens, it allows Gambia to have
at this point, though,
because it gets a much bigger market too in Senegal.
But at this point, though, unless you are able to create a higher level of productivity, opening a market to a country with whom you have unequal level of productivity leaves you more vulnerable.
Yeah, it makes you vulnerable, it's true.
And this has happened to the Gambia in a lot of ways. We sit at the same table with Senegal and signed agreements. And you come to realize that Senegal, let's say for example the fishing agreement. So we had a fishing agreement and we said, oh, okay, Senegal can come and fish in our waters, we can also fish in our waters. And each of us can just land either of the catches, either side. So say for example,
happening now.
Yeah. So, but you know, in your own waters, your own people don't fish. Yes. If there is Tuba, whatever, the festival in Tuba, the Magal in Tuba, if that is ongoing, you don't have fish. Because the fishermen are coming from Senegal.
Yes.
So you have an agreement with Senegal to say we can have a reciprocal fishing agreement. You are wasting your time because it's Senegalese who are fishing. You are not fishing. So,
but you are giving opportunity to Gambians to fish. The problem is Gambians are not fishing.
Yeah, but the point is you want to create
an opportunity for the Gambians to fish so we can have the market.
No, I think what from the Gambian side, and this is not for the Senegalo because you guys are at the middle. Yes. That's not for the Senegalo-Gambia. But for the Gambia, the trade ministry and the central government, the central government's focus should be to improve the Gambian productivity. Otherwise, the agreement is futile. It opens us to more vulnerability than it does the advantage.
No, the scales will tip on one side. That's natural.
But if you see the trade imbalance will just keep widening, and they will keep flooding your market. You can see, if you noticed, most of the this milk powder that is being sold in the market now. Now we barely have it imported from other economies.
Not only that, even agricultural products like oranges, like even kaba come from
exactly. So you see, you're becoming increasingly dependent on it. And part of it is when you can't be focused on ensuring the value of your delicacy of your currency and stemming inflations. When you have zero productivity, or when your productivity is going down, it affects the value.
Now, just for example, what do you think, Mustapha, could be a possible solution? Just throwing the ideas around.
For example,
if you are creating the skills, you are encouraging people, and they say, no, this is not what I want to do. I want to do something else.
If you look at one sector at a time. So, for example, I've mentioned fishing agreement, right? Now, in the Gambia, for example, there has been very little effort domestically to build a fishing sector. You have donors coming here and there to chip in money here and there. We've been mostly donor-funded efforts in the fishing sector. Even in the Jawara days, the little things you have, fish landing sites. Even Salekenya used to have one.
And Macau,
Yes, the fish landing sites, there are cool storages and all over. Over time, you have all of them dilapidated.
Absolutely.
And I've had time looking to a lot of fishermen in the Gambian sector. I've recently done a story which is not published yet on the fishing sector, and one of the things that comes across is that there is a very little capacity. There is limited capacity in the Gambian fishing sector. You have a lot of fish. You do have young people who want to go into the fishing sector, but they don't have capacity. Some they don't have boats. Yes, they don't have the capacity. They don't have the resources. Some have the capacity. They don't have the resources. That is precisely why even the fish mills that are operating in the Gambia, they are kept operated. They kept in operation because of Senegalese fish, because of Senegalese suppliers, not Senegalese fish. But Senegalese are the ones supplying the fish. Exactly, because they have this thing they call filler trune, the ones that can carry around 1,000 trays of fish and all that. Exactly, big ones. So we have to focus on building our product base from within. Whether we support our poultry farmers and try to build it before we open our economy, and the same thing for the fishing sector. I mean, it's easy to say young people are not willing to participate.
Yeah, that's true.
It's easy to say that.
That's what the government will
But if you go to these communities and you go to the ground and talk to the fishermen, they will tell you that well, there are a lot of young people who want to fish, but they don't have the boats, they don't have the fishing nets, and some of them also. So, for example, it is the same thing when people say people don't want to do farming. Now, you don't just build a trade, you have to also build a market for that trade.
Exactly.
Even if you support a profession without building a proper market for that profession, it wouldn't go.
Yes.
So, for example, if you said Gambia government says, okay, we are going to support farmers, you support a subsistent farmer. We've seen Jawara did it. Agricultural Bank failed. Why? Because Agricultural Bank was spending money on farmers who are not built to be businessmen.
Yes,
exactly.
They are you see, they are not businessmen.
Yes.
So that is setting up someone for failure. You are taking a loan to give it to someone you expect to pay, who is a subsistent farmer, and you haven't taught him how to add values. You haven't taught him. You haven't created a market for that person to be more productive and do it in a large scale commercial level. But you give him loan anyway. You set him for failure. And sometimes I think Gambia government will need to look into those things, not just create professionals or finance them, but also create a market for them. Then we grow a little bit better, so that by the time we have a little bit reasonably bigger markets, we can open up to Senegal.
Yes.
Otherwise, we would keep. They would dwarf us in everything. I mean.
And the other thing is you have to enhance the producer price for the producers, because it has to be worthwhile. It has to be beneficial, productive, profitable for the youths to accept to engage in farming. Now, if you grow groundnut, for example, you might spend a good number of 4 months tendering it to maturity to the SECO to sell it. A ton, you get $18,000 in the Gambia now, a little over 18,000. In the past, the government was compelled to increase it because Senegalese smugglers will come and offer more. So,
but the problem, in fact, is Tam. Economy cannot build on subsistent, whether it's in the farming community or any other thing. It cannot be built on people who are just into it to survive.
Yes.
And this is what is happening now. For it to go commercial, it has to have reasonable amount of resources.
And it has to be
exactly. And in Senegal, they are doing a little effort in terms of building those kind of
industries.
Just as it used to be.
Exactly, it's working. And so unless we also have built those kind of industries, when we have agreements like fishing agreement, it's them that it will benefit. It won't benefit us. Now, the trawlers, the Senegalese trawlers are currently in our mind. Like, for example, our agreement allows them to put over around 250 boats in our waters every year. But fishing tons, hundreds of tons.
In fact, even there is not enough monitoring. I mean, they can put
but also those tons, they can land it anywhere. So if you tell Senegalese boats that you can land your catch on either side, clearly, Senegal has a better hotel industry. The hotel industry pays better price.
They will go to
Senegal will sell its best fish to the Senegalese hotel industry.
Absolutely.
So clear. And so for me, if I were at that table on that agreement, I would have told them, look, okay, we can have an agreement for now, right? But every fisherman who is coming from Senegal, even if you are going to be on those small canoes, you have to come and register in the Gambia, and you have to pay a registration fee. And you have to come, once you pay registration fee, you go and GPA and pay your C40 certificate. And you will have to land a certain amount of your catch in the Gambia. And we will have to have daily report of your catch. At least over time, you can utilize that resources to build a navy base, coastal coast guards that could.
You must have missed what the Minister of Fisheries said. Yeah, that because we don't have landing sites, they're taking their catches to Senegal.
No, it's an excuse.
Although he said the 10% that's VAT is still paid.
That is not because they do not land their catches in Senegal because we don't have landing sites.
That's what he said.
We have landing sites. The problem is that the Article 1 of the agreement allows Senegal, the fishermen, to land their catch in either side of the divide.
So they have to choose.
Yeah.
They have a choice. Naturally,
yes.
They will choose where the economy is.
Exactly. They will choose where the higher prices would be paid.
Absolutely. And more people live.
Exactly. So even if we and the fisheries sector, the fisheries sector is more interested in money they are interested in developing the sector, because let's say, for example, the Gambia Navy doesn't have a huge capacity in monitoring the waters. But part of the problem is because they don't have boats, a lot of them. They don't have speedboats, a lot of them. They need to have speedboats, and a lot of them. They don't also, sometimes they even lack fuel to go to the sea. In fact, when we had the state of emergency in the COVID, when National Assembly summoned the Navy, what the Navy told them, we can't patrol because people are buying rice here. Until now, people are buying things here at Tangier. They put it on boats and take it to Senegal.
Yes.
GRA is not aware. Even journalists don't care about reporting those things because it seems too.
But even the fertilizer.
Yes,
like what we have been saying.
Exactly.
The communities. I mean, it has become the norm.
Yeah, I mean,
even the fertilizer is going across and all.
But for you to be able to have adequate monitoring, there are things they could do, but they didn't do that because they're focusing too much on money.
What the trawlers
and the trawlers will pay. So, for example, you have an agreement with EU.
This money is from the trawlers. Trawlers who were invested. Should be invested too.
But they don't necessarily even need to collect money. So, for example, you have an arrangement with EU. European Union has a number of countries to the agreement, all of whom have good coast guards and navy. The agreement could simply have focused on them providing you those equipment. Without necessarily taking the money. You could have taken capacity training and boats. You can have 50 boats.
Or more.
You would monitor all of our waters, and the amount of money Gambia uses, according to a study that was done, I think Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Mauritania, Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, and Senegal. They put it to close to $2 billion. Those four countries.
$2 billion.
Yes. The amount of money we use to unregulated, illegal, and overfishing, and the IUU. They call it. It's a lot of money. Yeah. Even in our waters right now, we lose a lot of money. Like even to the Senegalese also. I mean, like I said, all the Senegalese who are coming to fish in our waters, the small boats, even the artisanal fishers, they should have registered.
Exactly.
They should have been licensed. They should have paid for those licenses. You should have made money out of it. Even if they're going to land their catch in Ziganzor, at least they should pay for license. But because, so that is why I said, when we are going to the table, we need to go with something. Because at the table, your value is like a politician who goes to the table to negotiate for a coalition, but you have only one constituency. And compared to somebody you go to the table with,
that is why the balance is always fit on the tide of Senegal. You can't do it. Successive governments have failed to bring.
Even look at the Mansa Concourse that you people went to. We agree. The agreement was okay, but I think the very fact that all those 35 or so trucks they were allowed to go free, to cross free without Gambia insisting on them paying the tracking fees. I mean, I think that was too much. I think you people were very soft.
And also sometimes I feel like they bribe, or Senegal also bribes us with. Senegal bribes us with nice words like, we are the same people. Yes, true. But we are the same people with Guinea-Bissau. I mean, you go to Guinea-Bissau. You don't have to speak. You can speak full like all through Guinea-Bissau. You go to Sierra Leone, the same thing. You go to Bamako, the same thing. So we are the same people, yes. But we have to each protect our interests. And I feel like, people exaggerate social connections as part of problems. I think human problems are mainly one thing. It's not about tribe. It's not about the social connection. It's interest. Human connection is that. If you remove all tribes in the Gambia and you leave only Mandinkas here, James will begin to say they are better than the Darbos. Darbos will begin to say they are better than the... If you remove everybody and you leave only the Darbos from Bansang will begin to say they are better than the Darbos from Sanikin. This is what human relationship is about. So you only have to manage interests.
Exactly.
How those things are shared.
Good.
And if you and Senegal, they comes and tells us we are the same people. Yes, we are the same people. We have to also.
So you have enough to take to the bureau.
Yes, indeed.
But there is also so much they cannot do because they are in the middle.
But we have a way of also providing advice. As I said, we represent both countries. And what happens normally is, in the interest of ensuring that both countries also see that there's a win-win situation. For example, in my case, when I know that, for example, something is going to affect Senegal, just to give an example, I'm a Gambian, I'm there. So I consider myself more of a Senegambia in the sense that, as we've rightly said, we are neutral. So when we see some issues that probably will not be in the benefit of Senegal and it's done by Gambia, but it's not the right thing to do, we can advise. But the same thing would happen too if we see that something is happening against Gambia and it's not the right thing to do. I'm expecting me and the ambassador, who is the Gambian Senegalese, to sit down together and make a strong advice to the government. But we can only provide advice. As I say, advice is to be taken.
If you see, I mean, Senegal and Gambia could have had a win-win on timber trafficking. But we didn't have a win-win on timber trafficking until very recently. I'm not even sure right now but as far as 2023 data are concerned, we were still exporting illegal timber. Now, you see, I mean, and we are responsible for destroying environment in Casamance. Gambia was complicit in that. But the problem is that Gambia was too greedy. We could have managed resources from Senegal to a level that we both benefit without also unnecessarily hurting Senegal. Imagine if we have stopped export to China and we were using those tons of timber locally. We would have stemmed the deforestation level. But Gambia also would have had adequate timber. And now, because we are satisfying a market that has a taste, the whole sub-region cannot quench. So the market was so big, it's like throwing something into the mouth of a beast.
Yes.
It can't just fill up.
Insatiable.
And so Gambia recklessly, I mean, since Jammeh's days, was participating in something that was unfair. And Gambia could have had a better way to negotiate that. And you could see even Senegal was pissed. I mean, there was a Senegalese who was passing at one time and he found Chinese stuffing a container with rosewood. This was a time immediately after the Senegalese were ambushed, 7 killed. He was so angry, he went around and he was filming them. And he was commenting and he was filming them because he was angry. He took it personal that, look, you guys are selling this timber and you're destroying our country. And so there are some things that there could have been win-win. Where the locals would have benefited
too much on money.
That's it. Gambia concentrated too much on money. And
gentlemen, well, I think so far so good on your deliberations are quite informative.
Thank you very much.
And we wish you, success in tackling all these issues.
Thank you.
Now we move on to diplomatics. Well, diplomacy is still your area, although you people do it from the grassroots level. But in the last couple of days, we know the Secretary General job is coming up for grabs. In London, when Patricia Scotland's term ends. The Gambia, Ghana, what's the third country again?
Lesotho.
3 African countries buying, 2 from West Africa, including our own Mamadou Tangara, foreign minister for a very long time now, if you put his periods together as foreign minister. But over the last 20 years, there is a petition going around asking people to sign in opposition to him being made Secretary General, likely because he had served on the Jawo who had pulled us out from the Commonwealth among other reasons. The petition has been around. There are a lot of debates as to the merits and demerits of that, petition. There are others who believe that, well, why shouldn't we stick together as Gambians now and look at personality problems and what happened in the past and support a Gambian to get this influential job? Others said, no, all actions have consequences. They pull out the Commonwealth under his watch or on the time when he was working for Jammeh, so he shouldn't happen. What is your view, personally, not from your office view, but you personally, Doctor?
Okay.
Personally.
Well, this can always be seen from different angles. Personally, what I see is a Gambian who has been part of the Gambia, who has served the Gambia for a number of years, and today, for the first time, we are getting someone trying to vie for the position of Secretary General of the Commonwealth. So I'm looking from that perspective. I might have my opinion on whether the Commonwealth was useful to us or is important to us and all those things, but that's beside the point. As I said, I can even have my opinion on whether Tangara is a good guy or is a bad guy and all that. That's beside the point. For me, I see it as, here is Gambia, here is one Gambian who is vying for a position, which is an international one, and taking cue from a lot of other countries where they fight strongly and vigorously to have their own, sit in very upper high offices there. Whether they are going to give back something to them or not, they are carrying their flag, the Gambian flag somewhere, like we have with Dr. Omar Toure in the ECOWAS. So in my view, the Gambia has not been well endowed all the time to have great personalities in the international jobs, very high offices. We have a very few, but then at least I think it's not the nature of our size that should not allow us to have Gambians at certain levels. So in my view, I would say we support our own to get the tribals in there. So if there are differences amongst ourselves, if there are issues amongst ourselves, in my view, there are issues that I think we can always resolve.
Do you think just working for Jammeh regime in the diplomatic scene or in the cabinet or in another capacity should really disqualify him in terms of morality when it comes to the question between Gambia and the Commonwealth? Because many people think that if we apply such logic, Fatou Bensouda went to become prosecutor of the International Court of Law, and that's quite a human right institution. And she was Attorney General under Jammeh.
Yeah, look, working under Jammeh, for many of us, because I was also part of those who got a senior position at some point, working under Jammeh and even at his own office, it might have its own, negative sides, naturally. Because certainly Jammeh is passive, and I'm sure we have already got that brought out from TRRC, has somebody who has really done a lot of other criminal activities. Some of it is killing other people, innocent people, or taking the law by his hand, by his hand, and doing a lot of things. Somebody else will see Jammeh differently. We say, okay, Jammeh has also influenced, changed lives of other people and all that. So Jammeh might not be the perfect president, but one would not say, in my view, and that's personal too, as I said, would it mean that every Gambian should not have worked for Jammeh? Or everybody who worked for Jammeh is naturally, considered as an enabler or a bad guy?
Yeah.
I think personalities are individualized. People have individual personalities. There are some people who have been good guys who have worked for Jammeh, who have worked in the ministries, either as ministers or permanent secretaries or even civil servants or public servants, and who have really improved situations and have done some good into the country. Yes. And then Jammeh, look, Jammeh was Jammeh, and he has done all the atrocities. Yes, he must have used a lot of people to do that, certainly. I mean, anybody who was in the foreign service as a minister, it doesn't matter who it was, certainly will probably be doing certain biddings of Jammeh that you will have to be required to do. You have the option probably to resign or not to resign, but that's an option that is open. Some people can do it, some people cannot do it, some people will want to do it, some people will not want to do it. But I think the yardstick, to measure that probably would be a bit difficult, especially when it comes to the context of Africa. I mean, a lot of other governments are around. If you go to Cameroon, you have Paul Biya, who is 90-something years and is still president, probably is not even ruling the country. There are issues there. You go to Kagame in Rwanda, anybody who goes to Kigali would be elated to see that this is the most clean country. I mean, clean country, yes, because I've traveled in Kigali, even beyond, Rwanda, beyond Kigali.
Yeah.
And yet, everybody outside here will say he's a dictator because, look, he got about 90-something% in the elections, which is not dissimilar to what Jammeh was getting in the Gambia, etc., even though he was doing elections and all that. So it's a complex debate. I'm not saying that there's any win-win situation. Yes, if in any side you sit, there are good points to defend yourselves. But I'm just saying, when it comes to really having your own outside there, well, that's a debatable thing. For me, I would say support your own. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you have your child and it's a bad child, it's in your family. In as much as, I mean, even if you disown him, but you find that there is an opportunity for him to go there, then he will carry your name. You will say, okay, I will support him. Let him go and carry my name there. But there is always a challenge in everything. But in this case, for me, I would have really said, okay, let's support our own, allow him to pass. If he succeeds, then he will still be carrying our banner. If he doesn't help any Gambian and he sits there up to the end of his term and he comes back, they will still say a Gambian has been at the Commonwealth. Now, whether that matters much or not, I don't know. But I'm saying there might be some advantages to it, there might be disadvantages to it. But this is the trend I have seen, I've observed nationally, and I think probably is the right thing to do.
Yeah. Should we sign the petition, support it, or should we not?
Well, I agree with Doctor. I mean, it's not a straightforward situation because there are circumstances in all this you have to look at. In fact, I agree also that it's not enough to punish somebody just because we've worked with Yahya Jammeh. I mean, that's not fair to any Gambian because, I mean, there was a government in place. I mean, Yahya Jammeh was a dictator, but there was a government in place and it was a government of the Gambia. So it was Gambians who were expected to work for that government. I mean, some people maybe at the level they were working with the government, they did some things that were not palatable, Maybe probably you can, put Mamadou Tangara under that plate because at the position he was working in. I mean, like somebody said, I had somebody say, he was somebody who was, even though he worked with Yahya Jammeh, but he was never adversely mentioned at the TRRC, which I don't agree because if you listen to the testimony of Mustapha Sose, she said that, Tangara, as foreign minister, went to Mali at one time, trying to get the government to extradite her to the Gambia. So, of course, Tangara has denied that. But, the fact that they mentioned it in the commission is an adverse mention against Tangara, whatever the circumstances are. Again, is it the Gambia? If you look at the bigger picture, maybe you are looking at the Gambia. Should we have to personalize it to that level and then try to punish Tangara because he was Jammeh's foreign minister and maybe going around defending Yahya Jammeh both as foreign minister as well as at the UN, permanent representative of the UN. So these are also, if you look at both sides have their pros and cons. Both sides have maybe some issues that you can be able to justify, but definitely I think as far as I'm concerned, it is much more complex than just looking at Tangara as a former foreign minister of Yahya Jammeh. Maybe Tangara was serving the Gambia, the government of the Gambia. So, whether it was Yahya Jammeh there or anybody else there, as a Gambian, definitely he could have been foreign minister or any other position. It is the role that he played probably that some people are not happy with, and they probably feel that he should be held responsible for that role that he played. But anyway, all those are subjective issues. So, I definitely don't have a straightforward answer that people should sign the petition, or people should look at the bigger picture and look at the Gambia as a country. So, we should be proud when a Gambian gets such an international appointment, definitely. But again, what is the, what role did Tangara play?
Well, it's now clear that he was not foreign minister at the time of our withdrawal from...
No, but even at the UN, he had a big role to play, in defending the government. It's not a question of being foreign minister and the Commonwealth.
In the last minute.
No, it's not a question of just, withdrawing from the Commonwealth. That was just but, Tangara at the UN, as foreign minister or at any other level, he was very defensive of the Yahya Jammeh regime. We all know about...
So, if he had disagreed, he could have done the best thing by resigning, like Sidat, Emil Sidat job did when...
Yeah, those are all... those are all options available to him. But anyway, whatever the case, these are issues that are just not straightforward. You
still think it would be better for us to support him as a Gambian?
Well,
not judge him because he was. He was in the government.
I think it would not be fair to just punish somebody because he worked with Yahya Jammeh. But again, one has to look at what role the person played in trying to sustain Yahya Jammeh, the dictatorial tendencies and all those other things. So probably those who are actually floating around the petition have that at the back of their mind, that the positive role that, well, whether it's positive or negative, whatever, that he played in trying to sustain Yahya Jammeh, and he was going around the world and trying to promote Yahya Jammeh. I mean, and we all know Yahya Jammeh was running a dictatorship. Probably those who are floating around the petition, that's what they have. When others also on the other side also looking at the Gambia, the bigger picture of the Gambia. It would be our pride as Gambians to have a Gambian at that important, international appointment. But in my own particular case, honestly, I reserve my side on that area. I definitely wouldn't.
What do you make of people who say, well, if it is being associated with Jammeh's government alone, so many people are in international positions?
Indeed, that's what I said. It is not enough. It is not enough to. It is not enough to punish anybody just because you worked with Yahya Jammeh. Yahya Jammeh happened to have been the president of this country, but we had a country to run, and there must have been Gambians around that country. So Tangara happened to be maybe one of those people who were, maybe fortunate enough to be appointed to run. To be part of the government. That's an issue. It is definitely not enough to punish somebody just because but it is probably the role that you played while you were working with Yahya Jammeh that probably people will look at. And in the case of Tangara, probably those who are floating this petition is what they are looking at, what role he played, how negative was that role and other things. Probably that's what they have in mind.
Sure.
Yeah.
Mustapha, where do you stand on this matter?
For me, as a matter of principle, I separate people who have, it's not blanket to say people have worked under Jammeh. We have a government, and government has civil service. We have politicians, and we have policymakers. These are three-tier system of government. Now, permanent secretary is down to the last person, the cleaner. They are operatives who are acting on policies that are drafted from there above.
Yeah.
Right?
From the cabinet. Now,
and anybody who is operating at policy level essentially is involved in directing the government. That person cannot divorce himself to the ultimate outcome that government produces. That's my position. And I think that, like the poet Khalil Gibran says, if you are going to bring a cheating wife before to judgment, you should equally weigh the heart of the husband in scale.
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean? And for me, it's unfair that you have the only people who have to remake the opportunity to remake themselves are the elites, the intellectuals, the people who serve at the top level, and the average operative, the soldier, the NIA operative, are the ones who no one can protect, are the only one who have got to be vilified and accused of this and accused of that. For me, all those who have operated at policy levels, defended and protected abuse of human rights, are equally culpable as the security operatives who went and murdered people. Because this is an architecture that they've contributed in establishing that is doing. Now that's different from a permanent secretary. A permanent secretary is a civil servant or whatever who is in charge of a particular section of government, implementing is an everyday civil servant. It's an everyday person, or a director, Now, but when you are now involved in effectively representing that government, I think you should be held responsible, in principle, for the outcome of that government. Now, think about it. Yakuba Baji, for example, was arrested. Solo Sunday was picked up on the street, was taken into NIA because he was beaten to death. Usman Sonko was not there. In fact, if you read Usman Sonko when he was arrested in Switzerland, he was arrested with a small note he scribbled for his asylum. You remember? I wrote it on the Standard. And yes, exactly. And part of the things he was saying there was that he didn't order the torture of Usman. He was picked up, and he said Jammeh was not satisfied with the way he handled the protest, even though he later claimed the note was not true. He wrote it, he just wanted to seek asylum for it. But we both know the note was, I think,
definitely true.
I think the note was true. Now, so Usman was not involved in torturing people.
Not directly.
Not directly. Yakubu Baji, the director of NIA, was not involved in torturing people. Not directly. Because even the people, the video, at least he was not. Junglers are the ones who tortured people. So a lot of them, but under their directive and in absence of their directives, under a situation, environment they created, or under an environment they were present but failed to do something about it. Because the crime is not only committed because you did it physically, but it's also committed because you see it and you fail to do something, and it's within your power to do something. Now, dissent is a form of protest. To say, I am not doing it, I'm not going to be part of this. It's a form of protest. And if we, and I understand this, whataboutism started in 2017, when UDP initially came in and took advantages to took some of the Jammeh guys on board, and people talk and they said, no, but they have right to association. And now when they are also saying, no, but this guy, and people are saying, but you said they have right to association. So that whataboutism will continue forever. But at some point it has to stop. At some point someone has to stand and say, no, let's build a country on principles. And say, I am not saying victimize anybody who had participated on the Jammeh regime. But if you have in any way endorsed human rights violations, or any way participated, or in any way seemed to have, was in a position where you could have stopped, or could have voiced your disagreement and failed to do so, government shouldn't hire that person or endorse that person for any job. And that includes Fatou Bensouda. Fatou Bensouda should not have had government endorsement. Yeah, because she was involved. She was, if I get it right, I think she was the justice minister when Almamo Mane and others were killed.
Only the government that
yes, I know, but you see the interview with Deutsche Welle. It was a very tough interview for her. You see, we have to build a society based on principles where, regardless of who people are, their basic rights will be protected, regardless of who we think they are. So, and that principle has to start from somewhere. So even if you are a senior policy maker, you have to take principled stance on people. Now, okay, if you have, for example, let's say Sidin Jai, you remember in 2015 April, Jammeh was in Turkey, OIC, when the Solo Sandem protest started, right? He was in Turkey. And when Jammeh came, there was a march. We covered it at the Standard. There was a march welcoming Jammeh, and people participated there. Yakuba Koli, Sidin Jai, all these guys, Faba Kartombo Njata and others. They participated in welcoming Jammeh as a show of force to show APRC is not weak. There is no protest. This is just by a tiny fraction.
That's what they always do.
Exactly.
Now,
how fair do you have a society where Okay, now that Sidi Njai comes to now speak on transitional justice, and he is now quoting incarceration of Yankuba Baji, who is incarcerated for the murder of Solo Sandeng, which he endorsed and did a march to welcome Jammeh, right? And now calling that as we are prosecuting people for Jammeh era crimes. That's morally troubling. But Cham, this is our lives shouldn't be about politics. Our lives should be about justice. Now, I'm not saying a permanent secretary is person who execute orders and a person who execute policies. A soldier is a person who execute orders. Oya was executing orders, regardless of however illegal those orders were. But remember, it was Jammeh was the custodian of state power. Exactly. He was elected president. He issued orders to a military manager, go and execute the party. That was a direct order. Now, for me, Oya is better. I would forgive Oya, honestly, and I think I do. I still do forgive him. For than a person who was at that policy level, so because Oya had no choice. He either had to kill or be killed. He doesn't even have the resources to go and live outside. Those guys are poor people. I mean, you've met the junglers?
Yes, several of them.
They are poor. Like, those guys have nothing.
They got
really nothing. I mean, you could see after killing of Deda Hydra, you saw Malik Jada what he was saying. We score, I think, $1,000. He said. We score. Yeah, but he said we score $1,000. I think. Now, can you think how much is $1,000 at that time? It was no money at all. Exactly. But the people who are implementing, who are part of defending that system, the system was the one that made Oya a criminal. He went in the military to become a soldier. The system turned him into a killer. And that system is sustained by intellectuals. I cannot forgive those intellectuals and turn around and say Oya was a murderer, he was a jungler, so what? He was a jungler. He was killing on orders of the president of the republic. And but the person who is executed, Tangara was a minister of state, and from there he was also at the UN. So I cannot in good conscience endorse that. I'm not saying he shouldn't be endorsed, but I cannot endorse that. And if I am in any position, I wouldn't have any such person employed. A permanent secretary, down what I understand, that person is working, is a civil servant. But anybody who operated at policy level saw those right violations, endorse them, because by your participation, you've endorsed those right violations.
How could they have opposed those things and
they could have
remain
left.
in government?
They could have you don't have to remain in government, Cham. You and I are not working in the government. He never worked in government except when you were a minister, right? Exactly, but he worked only once. But you and I never worked in government. We're still alive. Exactly. So you don't have to work in government. It's not. I mean, it's not an entitlement to work in government. Is a privilege.
You need to leave his government.
No, you can leave. You can say, Mr. President, look.
If you know too much.
There is a normal. Under Jammeh operated two systems. There was a usual government, which has its own pops and pageantry. Usual government. And the usual government was doing usual things usual governments do. You have to separate that from the unusual government that he had. And that is where Jammeh operated. And if you are a permanent secretary downwards, you are in that usual government. The government that does projects, that goes and builds schools, that goes and talks about education, that's a usual government. Now that's not what I'm talking about. Now, but when you are involved in defending the policy directions of the government, you are both an embodiment of that usual and unusual government. I cannot endorse that.
Well, what do you? And
I don't think that is right.
What do you make of arguments that singling him out from among many people who could have been, culpable in the same circumstances is unfair?
No, how I treat that? No, it's not unfair. You see how I treat that? It's like when somebody says, okay, in those days, like I talked about this so-called whataboutism. So for example, in those days when somebody says, we've seen this vicious circle. So for example, I'll give few examples. Excuse me if I name names. So for example, let's say Sabali was at UDP, and UDP talks about Sidinjai, and but you also have your Sidinjai, you have Sabali, and NPP and UDP keeps trading this kind of things. Now, at some point, someone has to refuse to be tempted by that and look at every case independently. Now you can say, well, how about Fatou Bensouda? But that's besides the point. The point is we will independently judge Fatou Bensouda in her unique case. And I have told you, I personally am against her appointment. I'm against Gambia government endorsing her because I believe she is partly responsible for what happened here. Yes, and even when she was the prosecutor, she went quiet on Gambia's case.
Well, she said the atrocities at the time didn't reach the threshold,
That's what, yes. But ICC do those issue warnings. Even the UN part of the UN this thing on genocide. They don't only wait until genocide is committed. They issue warnings. Even when Jammeh made that famous remarks in Talending, Jan issued a warning. Exactly. Now the people, and especially you are a Gambian, you're not just any other person, you are a Gambian. You can speak on matters relating to Gambia. Now we have to hold those people responsible at a different varying degree for what happened. If you see a wrong happening, you have an option to talk about it. You can condemn it. Even Islam, they said the weakest faith is the one who sees something
and don't talk about it,
and may not do anything about it, but had it in his heart. And if you dislike something in your heart, you won't be involved in it. So you don't have to be against Jammeh. What I am saying is, in these cases have to be separated. We have to bring Fatou Bensouda's case independently and speak on that. We have to bring Tangara's case independently and speak on that, and bring other people's case independently and speak on that.
What about the chairman of the ECOWAS, the president of the ECOWAS Commission?
What did the president of ECOWAS Commission did?
Well, if the United States is association with the Jammeh regime, he was part of the Jammeh regime. Was it?
No, but I think we have.
But what has he done? But there are in different degrees, different degrees at which people are involved. And there are different things that they were involved in doing. Right. And there are people who, come on, Cham. Some of these people have the option, have participated, and they were voices for Jammeh at the international stage. When people have crowd foul about human rights violations in the Gambia, they defended it. They said, no, there's no human rights violation in the Gambia. And they were the forefront of that.
But that
is wrong.
He's been pressed also for being among the people who abandoned Jammeh after he lost the election.
That was not abandoning Jammeh.
After he lost, probably he was looking for another opportunity.
That was not abandoning Jammeh. We cannot allow in principle. Now, tell me, the security officers who have committed human rights violations under Jammeh, they have no opportunity to remake themselves. Borakoli just came. Everyone is asking for him to be arrested. Because, of course, he was involved in execution. Now, those people were killing. What were they maintaining?
Jammeh, of course.
Jammeh. And who were the biggest beneficiaries? The elites who were serving the government. The military soldier. I told you, I went to Malik's house. I went there. I even wrote about it, yes. Malik, in fact, there are things, those guys are broke. I don't need to say all those things, but those guys don't have anything. In fact, to show you how paranoid Malik was, I told him that I wanted to ease myself. He led me into his brother's house. There was this bathroom inside the room, and he stood at the gate waiting for me to come out.
He was a soldier. He's always a soldier.
Yeah, but we are always a soldier. But it tells you, you have to be in his head. It tells you how paranoid those people are.
That's right.
They have to live looking over their shoulders all the time. But the same person who protected, defended, sell the good image of that government, that has remade himself and became the president, or maybe become vice president, or become something better, or minister. And this other soldier, so you have to stop talking about transitional justice, stop talking about justice, because that's not justice, that's vengeance now. You have separated people, you are punishing other people, and you are not punishing other people. That is vengeance.
So you had the arguments for and against Tangara being candidates for the Secretary Generalship. Well, I hope...
well, one thing is also certain. Weighing at the position, he stands not much chance, looking at, because it is Africa's turn this time round. Africa has only had one Secretary General.
On the contrary, I heard that he's perhaps the most competent and most famous among the popular,
I don't know, because if you look at Lesotho, Southern Africa, when it comes to the Commonwealth countries in Africa, SADC has more Commonwealth members than
West Africa.
Than West Africa. West Africa has only 4,
and there are
there are only 2 candidates. And
so they will have to appeal to the Caribbeans.
Well, of course, you Caribbeans, the Pacific, Australia, Asia, New Zealand, and Asia.
Tangara is said to be popular in those areas.
Well, I don't know how popular, but as far as I'm concerned,
he might have been in the UN and they made friends there.
Probably, yeah. It's not possible,
the UN,
probably using that network.
UN members of the Commonwealth.
Yeah.
The Rohingya case may also
make it popular. The Lesotho guy also is a member of the Commonwealth Secretariat.
Yeah, I think he's a staff there.
Yes, he's a staff member of the Commonwealth Secretariat. So probably he also has got influence among the Commonwealth members. So anyway, let's see how it comes. But as far as I'm concerned, the analysis I made.
And the Gambia government only came lately to endorse him, not so. Yes,
well, I don't know, because even the Ghanaian president came here to campaign.
It was after his visit that Gambia government came lately to endorse, to fully comment publicly statement endorsing him.
I don't know, but I think that we need to sit down and rediscuss when we say TJ process, Jammeh to justice, or things like that. What do we actually mean? We could look at what works for us and relook at this whole thing, because justice is not, that's why they say justice must not just be done, it must be seen to be done.
Anyway,
that is why it says when justice is applied to people, they themselves, the person who is going to jail himself must have admitted that, well, I have gotten what I deserve. This is not always the case, but at least in principle, so that the person who is in prison knows that, well, I am punished for a crime I committed, and the people who have endorsed this crime are also getting their own fair share.
One thing is certain. Whenever Jammeh goes to court, it's likely that a person like Tangara would definitely be a witness, because he was very much involved in the way Jammeh was operating. So that's what I think.
Well, so this country, the way we are thinking things and the way we are taking things
is... mean our usual maslaha is taking too much from...
Yes, and Cham, the truth is that the country cannot move without accountability. We need to put certain basic measures of accountability, so that whatever... because it's a way of stopping people from doing wrong in the future. It's a good way of doing that. No country has progressed without accountability. And at some point, we also need to stop the vicious circle. Okay, Pate has lied, so I have lied. And people have said, but you have lied. I said, yeah, but Pate also has lied. And then Samba comes, yeah, Samba has lied. And we said, you have lied. He said, yes, but he has lied. He also has lied. You cannot work like that. But so this is what we've been doing in this country. Things are wrong.
But if they could become ministers in our own home.
Yeah, but that's my whole point.
And there are no systematic and organized campaign against that from our own.
But that is my point from the beginning.
If we fail to...
From the beginning, no. From the beginning. the TRRC, you know, there was supposedly a vetting bill.
Yes.
But the idea was that TRRC, in post-TRRC, no. The idea was in post-TRRC, government and security agencies would have had a good vetting agency, good internal vetting institutions.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to be stationed at the office of the president for all significant employees, right? So this can look at things from independent point of view. They may look at him, one minister may not be lucky, another minister, maybe somebody might have served under Jammeh and had dissented in a number of cases, or is found to have been involved with nothing. Clean slate. That can happen.
Yeah.
But people need to be vetted in order of their involvement in human rights, so that at least everybody knows that everybody is held to account regarding, to a certain degree, your level of involvement with human rights violation, so that we can know now, okay, now everybody is apportioned your responsibility accordingly. But other than that, if all that you have to do is the only people who have to face these are security people, yes, the Jammeh, the person who implemented Jammeh, or a vice president can now even come and sit and imagine, okay, for example, if Tombonjata, for example, is the president and that state is prosecuting Oya.
Yes.
You don't find that troubling.
Yeah, and he's in line for successful.
But that's what I'm saying. You have to find that troubling.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't matter whether at the beginning UDP acted irrationally in that, and I think they did. I don't think we both know they did, but it doesn't matter whether that was the case or that is not the case. Now, there is no point not being truthful because other people are not truthful.
Okay.
That's not a measure.
See your point.
So I think it needs to begin somewhere, that we have to do proper vetting and hold people responsible in accordance of their responsibility.
Good point. I was going to bring the constitution, but we have run out of time. Doctor, your final impressions?
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess there is so much to discuss. And I think it is always good to be talking and giving the views that we have, for example, given here. They are not divergent views. They are what we complementary views, because this is the views of many people who are in the Gambia here today. What I always keep promoting is that, irrespective of our divergent views, irrespective of our differences in the way we perceive things, let's also ultimately understand that we all represent a country that we are all willing to build. We are all prepared to this, and these discussions will allow us, even if it is just to wake our conscience and then sensitize us. For some of us who will probably end up being part of government one day and all that, to learn from these things and know that sometimes your past can catch up on you. So apart from that, I'm thanking you also for the Secretariat. I think I will say that, you know, there is so much to do to build a very good relations, but mutually beneficial or a win-win situation between Gambia and Senegal, and we've learned a lot from here. And then certainly this is going to be a good way of going home and pursuing certain other opportunities, and then maybe looking at other strategies to help strengthen the relationship we have with Senegal. Because at the end of the day, I mean, in as much as we might have our differences or we might have our views, Senegal and Gambia will continue to have to live together because of the nature of our geography anyway. So finding better options and better ways to do that, I think is supposed to be our ultimate solution. Thank you very much.
All right, gentlemen, there's the small matter of Gambia versus Tunisia tomorrow in the Africa Cup of Nations. And that's one reason I put on the Gambia national jersey. But sorry, we don't have much time to link up it.
I would have put on one too if I know.
Well, yes, I mean, Wednesday we drew Comoro Islands, and we now have Tunisia and Madagascar to meet. Of course, we will meet with Comoros again, but Madagascar, Tunisia, we haven't met. On Sunday we'll meet Tunisia. We have qualified twice in a row.
I think the Gambia stands a chance in this particular group. Because I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's very likely Gambia and Tunisia would come out of the group.
Why do you discount Madagascar?
Oh no, Madagascar. Well, they did well in the recent past. Madagascar and Comoros did quite well in the recent past, but I think Gambia can still, overcome them. That's what I think.
I have no opinion.
Well,
I don't watch football.
That is the hope. We hope, of course, that they start doing that by beating Tunisia tomorrow. Good. Good luck to all of you in Morocco.
We will both pray, but some of us don't watch it.
Yes. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being on the brunch. We will be back next week, inshallah, with a fresh topic, perhaps, or maybe continue some of the topics we've discussed here. Thank you.
Islamic microfinance is becoming an increasingly popular mechanism for poverty alleviation, especially for developing countries around the world. This microfinance service adheres to the principles of Islam as a form of social responsibility. Yona Islamic Microfinance is the Islamic microfinance of choice in the Gambia, trustworthy and reliable. At Yona Islamic Microfinance, we provide savings products, current accounts, financing products in conformity with Islam. In addition, Yona Islamic Microfinance also offers local and international remittances, takaful fund, management of zakat, management of awqaf, trading and investment, and building of strategic partnerships to bring financial services to the doorstep of the poor with donor projects, madrasas, youth organizations, women groups, and farmer organizations. Make a choice with Yona Islamic Microfinance today. For more information on Yona Islamic Microfinance, call 377-2151 or 9832-151 or visit Yona head office at Tipa Garage, Bakote, or visit any Yona branch located countrywide near you.
Planning to have an uninterrupted electricity and water supply from solar energy in the Gambia and beyond? Worry no more, because Solar Enterprise will provide you with the solutions at reasonable cost. We have experienced personnel who can install and advise you about your electricity and water supply with a warranty period. We have good quality solar products from North America and Europe. We provide services and sell products to individuals, organizations, institutions, private offices, communities, and government. These products are solar panels, batteries, charge controllers, inverters, water pump, water heaters, freezers, submersible pumps, and general solar accessories. Visit our stores at 48 Karaba Avenue and Brusubi Highway, or you can call us on 7657-479 980-8483, 340-9400 or 635-9906.
Jamano Money Transfer Bureau de Change, your go-to option when it comes to money transfer. With Jamano, you can send money from anywhere in the world to your family and loved ones in the Gambia and be sure the funds will be delivered to them within the shortest time possible. For your convenience, funds sent through Jamano Money Transfer can be picked from all the banks and multiple other financial institutions, including Ajib Bank, Trust Bank, GT Bank, Mega Bank, Basic Bank, Reliance Financial Services, and Approved Services. Visit our head office at Brusubi opposite AfricMed next to Trust Bank Limited, or email us at info@jamanomt.com. You can as well call us on 310-3050 or 310-3051 or yet still 733-0688. Our opening hours are 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Saturday and 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sunday. Jamano Money Transfer, your most trusted money transfer service where customer satisfaction is paramount. When you think of a simple, fast, and reliable money transfer, think Jamano Money Transfer.
agada
mbijan aganyade
albaka
mbaka important
yo nga transfer la sto
ya transfer la
ha code nyenje
okay nsila id soto
sa so sorry agada
mbijan bro
albaka
mbaka
bara alla service o tariya
mbale
mo ki janna nun kuno bara tariya
jannom yona forest de bureau Gambia tonkon na no mbali ya bere birin koyna fo kato
bari si kodo kino kato ni fo bolon blabe
56 branches mola soto Gambia jam
ha
Gambia kono ani Gambia bantala bankol nko kodo kiya bere kodo sifa fo falindiro fo nyaadi lafta memmen na kodi topoto nin kodi maraw jannom number 1 ti nyonta andum fana nata anoda enterprise sotale wolam nyindi ko domorol fana kol fana be firale le dadi ma ni domorol ni fana beteata Gambia dawda yalo ngam fa kendol sotale je
wo mo yo diat
apelenta
ni wo ka ni na lafta nyelen kendol e bina
yalo bu kanila ko la baraka ba
yalo ndel ciosano lo
baraka